Welcome back to Bid on You. We are back today with a solo epi. Applause, applause, live for the applause. If you ever thought about going back to school, but you weren't sure what homework would even look like at this big age, at this big stage, then this episode is for you, so just stay tuned. As you may or may not know, this time last year, well, you didn't know this last year. I'll just give you some of my lore. So I went to Alabama for undergrad, Roll Tide, and I got my undergrad degree in communications and information sciences, you feel me? And specialized, like my major was in PR, specialized in sports and entertainment. And that was very much a field where it was like, okay, we have the understanding from a book sense, but there's so much like real world practicum that comes with that field. So I always was like, there's no need for me to go like back to school or whatever, because this is like a real world experience type of field. And my mom is in academia, and so she's always like pro degrees. Everyone, like my immediate family, has advanced degrees. So I was just like, that's cute for y'all, but anyway, I'm over here doing this. And I moved out to LA right after graduation, was always working. I was working entertainment. And so to me, I wasn't seeing anyone around me who was like, just so you know what I mean? Like, make sure you go and get a doctorate. Like, that was not at all the path. There were people, honestly, in high positions who I'm not even sure if they went to college. So for me, it was more so like, okay, I'm going to continue to work and work my way up in this space. That was just like my original thought process. And I had friends who went to grad school, like right out of school. And to me, it always seemed, no shade, but it seemed like a junior version of adulthood, where it was like, okay, we're all graduating undergrad together. Who wants to be doing this nasty thug lifestyle of adulthood? However, rip that Band-Aid off. And so I had friends who had 2 years in addition to their undergrad of grad school consecutively. And when they finally got out and were like working, I was looking at them like, it's hard out here for a pimp, So I just didn't think that initially that would be my path, which is why I feel like this episode is important to do. I feel like people have asked me about it for a while and it's been on my mind, but I was like, you know what? Let's have a quick solo epi. We're coming up on the year anniversary of me finishing school. So a little background is I went to USC for my master's in digital media management, so fight on. And it was through their communication school as well, Annenberg. And USC, I live in Los Angeles, so USC is so like that girl out here, that to the point where I was like, like, I don't think I understood. I remember when I met someone when I was first starting out here, and they were like, yeah, I went to SC. And I was like, oh, go Gamecocks. Like, shout out South Carolina. Meanwhile, they mean the University of Southern California. And now look. So the jokes write themselves, and it's also funny how like God knows so many things. Obviously, he knows all things. He's God. But he better than me, because I would have had to spoil it. I would have had to tell y'all like, LOL, little do you know, this is going to be really important for you sooner than later. So spoiler. But, we're all just pathing our path in life and our life. And so as I was in my career, I was still in the mindset, like, I'm building my career. I want to do this, and this. I'm open to going this way. And I also am a creator on the side, and I have my show. And just, that was sort of like my mindset. I was like, I always tell people, I grew up in theater and grew up acting. And whenever people ask me in LA, I'm like, well, I value health insurance. So I'm ahead as 9 to 5 type, and I had the whole women in tech journey and still am on that journey, LOL, very much so. So even more so than ever before, I feel like I've come into my footing in that career space, but I would also add that a good amount of that has been enhanced by my master's degree. And with USC particularly being so popular in LA and in California, I definitely think a big part, of course, was, the access to the Trojan network and the access to the alum, and just also the way that USC is seen as so prestigious and so respected out here. It really reminds me, honestly, of Alabama, but obviously a little bit higher stakes being in California, and just the alum and the access that students have. I remember being like going on campus one day, and it was Denzel Washington's son, John David Washington, and his other son, and they were doing like, oh, let's just have a little fireside chat panel at Annenberg talking about how we went to film school, or talking about how we decided to start making movies, start acting, whatever that may be. And I was just sitting up there thinking, like, we used to be excited if we got somebody from like Fox Sports, you know, no shade, loved Alabama, would never change it. But it was just so interesting to be like in the heart and the mecca of entertainment, and to have that level of access, and to just really like in real time see how far reaching their network is. So all of that is to say, got my master's in 1 year, and I did what was called the accelerated track. Now, you know me. One thing about me, I'm going to do the hard path and then be like, wait, what's going on? This is hard. So, oops. But very much giving Elle Woods, what? Like, it's hard. And on top of that, I had the lore of, I don't want to tell people really that I'm doing this, because originally my work environment and just other things, I was like, okay, it'll be cool to just see if I can like do this and it be Marissa's thing that I'm working on. Then it turned into, Lord, can I do this with me and you locked in without the like applause and approval of people? And I definitely always thought it would be like, oh, come with me to my grad school class, or like, here's how I'm surviving grad school or whatever. But a year, I remember being like, oh, everyone's like, oh, a year will go by so quickly. And I was like, okay, as I was writing those discussion posts. But now looking back, it's like hard to remember I even was in school last year. Like a little bit of me recalls, but it's kind of getting to work undergrad and high school is for me, where I'm like, oh, also it just eats to be able to say undergrad, because it's like not even just college anymore. It's like, yeah, one of my pillars of education. But anywho, I say all that to say, I did the accelerated track, so I completed it in 1 year. I 10 out of 10 would recommend that. 9 out of 10. It's going to be difficult. Like, let's just go ahead and already know that. But nothing easy is worth having. So I don't know that I'm the best frame of reference, because I tend to do the harder thing. And I'm just prefacing so y'all don't be calling on my line. Time I'm Marissa. That's me, okay? As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord in the harder track. Narrow gate. So with that being said, I completed the program from January to December, and I was also working full time initially. And so it was definitely a balance. Like looking back, there was a point in time where I had just started grad school. I was working full time, and I was shooting the show and putting out episodes all by myself every single week, and having a social life and working out and being a child of God and being somebody's child and somebody's friend and all these things. So I don't know what that was. And honestly, as I age, the more I just appreciate laying down and relaxing. But I do think something I would really advise is like having a routine before we jump into like surviving grad school. Obviously, I'm laying the groundwork to just say like, this is how I got to where I'm at. To me, a few things that help me make that decision, and hopefully if you're considering will help you, is like, why not now, was a really big thing for me. So I was like, nobody's mama, nobody's wife, you know, like have my career, like have my family, like have all of those things, but I'm just kind of doing my own thing, and I'm in a place where I can do that. And so I was thinking it would be so much better to do this accelerated track, this program, all of that today, and a year is going to pass regardless. So that's honestly a really big piece of advice that I would tell people. And I've heard this before about just like other things worth pursuit in life. The time is going to pass regardless. So you could pass the time and not have the degree, or you could pass the time and have the degree. Up to you. And a little bit of it is the bit about Black women just, I ain't doing nothing, I'll get my master's. Like, I fear guilty as charged, but a win is a win. So here we are. And I think that's something you should really consider, like where you're at right now in your life, who's depending on you and who's not depending on you, what flexibility you have in your schedule, and compare that to where you want to be and see which one looks like a better bet. For me, like I said, my mom's in academia. She had her master's, I think, as long as I can remember, like when I was born, maybe. But I remember she got her doctorate when I was like middle school, maybe 9th grade was when she graduated, or, you know, defended her thesis and all those things, and or dissertation, all that stuff. But child, I just remember being like, what? Because I have an incredible mother, and she was working full time and having a husband and 2 children and getting a PhD. Crazy work. So shout out her. But for me, if it didn't have to be that hard, I'm not on it. And she will tell people all the time, given that obviously she's in academia now, but she'll tell people, like, if they're nurses and they're like, oh, I want to go back and be an MP, or I want to do this, I want to do that. She's like, do it now, because obviously it just makes sense that when you finish a class, to be able to order DoorDash, watch TV, write your discussion posts, and go to bed is 10 times better than let's get these children up and get them ready for school tomorrow. Like, thank you, Jesus, for opportunity. So that's just my perspective. I was like, this is a better time than any. Also, I think for the people that are like, do I want to go back to school and be doing homework? Woo, I feel you deeply on that. I personally was like, reading. Okay, just kidding. Obviously love to read, but I was like, reading, being forced to read, being forced to write up these paragraphs. Like, Suzanne, I just thought what you said was so interesting, because like, I was like, how am I going to do that? Honestly, I would think about Sundays, like post church coming home, and I would think to myself, like, imagine if you had to like do something right now. Like, I remember sometimes I'd be doing work on Sunday and I'd be like, now I shouldn't even be. So that was my biggest hurdle, was I was like, how are you going to switch your mindset back to be like, okay, school is constant and you have assignments due and you have homework and you have projects and you have decks. Like, how are you going to go from, that's a huge thing. I think if you don't go straight through to grad school, and this is more so who I'm speaking to, the people that are like thinking about going back to school, that is something I would recommend, like mentally, emotionally, physically, all the ways adjusting for, is that you will have like a lifestyle change, just in the sense of like your free time allocation. Now, depending on the program, depending on the person, I know some people like, be prepared to lose your life for 2 to 3 years. Like, I didn't get an MBA. I didn't go to med school. You know what I mean? So there's differing degrees, I'm sure, differing like needs and approaches and rigor. But I definitely was like, oh, can't have class. Like, that became a thing. But I also, going back, was not really advertising like, hey, I'm in grad school. So my close people, my like village, my closest friends in LA, they knew. So I would be able to be like, hey, I have class, or hey, I have homework. And obviously, like, my family knew, my immediate family. But like, other than that, it was kind of crazy, because it's like, oh, hey, I'm showing up to Bible study 30 minutes late, and I can't say why I'm 30 minutes late every week for this, you know, but it's like, I have class this semester that is until 7:30. You know what I mean? So just stuff like that. I think looking back, I would like have class in the evenings, and then I would like close my laptop, run out the door, make it to my whatever Bible study, like whatever social arrangement. I would have certain days, like originally I had, when I was doing like work and school and podcasts and all that, I had to be very like, Thursdays you do this, Wednesdays you do this. So it was like allocating your schedule and your time. I think it's the best way you're going to survive that. Just being able to say like, okay, these days I do the discussion posts for all the classes. Mondays, I remember like I didn't go in office, so I would Monday, and I didn't have class. So I would do all of my readings like Sunday and Monday for all the classes. And shout out Notion. This is not an ad, but like Notion really got me through grad school. So shout out whoever even like introduced me to that, but it just kept me so organized. I had like every class broken down by like all the notes, all the readings. Like if I wanted to go back now, which is another cool thing, because it wasn't all in through like school, it's my personal. So I could go back if I wanted to and like check out my notes, check out some of the things that I was reading and like what I took away from it. And I remember thinking, is this absorbing? Like, I think with school, it's funny because you're like, am I learning? And now I've seen like from my brief time at a startup and just obviously in my like day-to-day work now, managing creators, I can see just my understanding of like the digital space, my understanding of digital equity and media literacy. Like I can see the dividends of how those things have like improved or enhanced. And just honestly, I'm just more knowledgeable. So outside of obviously the prestige, the degree, I think it is cool to always be learning. I'm one of those people. If you're not a student type person, and I make the joke with my mom, I'm like, you love school, but like secretly I do too. I love to learn. I love to know things. So it really is fun and exciting, especially what was cool about going to school if you've already had a bit of a career, if you worked for a while, you're not going straight through. What was cool was having like real life and real world application. So I know I said earlier, oh, a lot of this is going to be coming from working in the real world. Okay. Then I got to see kind of the engine of now my real world experience fuels and feeds what we're talking about in class. So I was able to talk about like, oh, working at this platform, I noticed this and this when we'd have a section on social media platforms, so it was really cool to be able to see like, oh, I really have learned obviously from working, but now I can apply that to higher education. And then it also informs my perspective in a way that some of my classmates in my cohort maybe were like younger or were making a transition over from a different career path. Like I had people in there that had like worked in healthcare or worked in the military, and they were like, I just think this is good information, or they were making a career pivot, whatever. And it was cool to be able to speak from like a place of experience, because I think discussion is so important. Obviously we're in communication, so LOL. Sometimes I'd be in class like, y'all need to be talking more. I hate to say it, but like we got to run up the yap train, because this is what we want to do, isn't it? I'm confused. Why is the teacher having to tell y'all like say something? So I say all that to say it would be really cool to be able to like have those discussions and go deeper, because we did have like the practical application. And with that, most of my teachers obviously have worked in the field, are respected, like have their own like advertising agencies, or they, worked as journalists. Like they have that background where they're not just telling you something, they've experienced it for the most part. So most of them, honestly, a good amount of them were like adjunct too. It was a good balance. So I didn't feel like, no shade to people that are only, obviously pulling from curriculum or full time, but I felt like I got a good balance of you're actually doing this in your day to day, and then you're teaching about it in the evenings. So I loved that. And then let me think of some more like questions that I've really gotten about it, just so I can make sure I'm like addressing those for y'all. I think, we talked about like what made me realize I wanted to do it. Some of the fears that I had when doing it, I wouldn't say I really had many fears. I just was like, oh, am I going to be still good at school? Am I going to be able to adjust my life, my schedule? Am I going to be able to do homework again? Like those things come to mind. Obviously, financially, you're taking on a burden there. So you have to decide like what's best for you based on what you and your life got going on, of course. But I don't know that I necessarily was like afraid. I just was more so like, will I be able to balance everything, and will I be good at it? And I think that that's just something that I, recovering perfectionist. Now I did graduate with a 4.0, praise God. But alas, I was very serious about like, I want to do it, and I want to do it to the utmost. So I was like, if I'm going to be over here, I need straight A's. Like, that was something that really kept me going. And I think that added a layer of discipline where it wasn't like, I don't know. Other people used to be like, oh, I forgot to turn that in. What do you mean? Like, I wasn't that way in undergrad either. But in undergrad, I was so like in the mix that it was easier. Obviously, you're on a college campus. It's like a different level of maturity and level of like investment. But with this, I felt like at a certain point, it was just like school. Like, I'm executing and I'm making sure this area of my life is excellent despite anything else going on. And so it's really feels great too to be able to say like, I went back to school, I did it in a year, I graduated 4.0, I had the degree. Like, boom, it's done. You know what I mean? I don't know, maybe that's me, but to me it's just like, duh. But I think definitely asking yourself, if you're thinking about applying, if you're thinking about going back to school, asking yourself why. Asking yourself, is now like the right time? And if not, why? Is there going to be a better time? What's going to make that time better? Like, I think those are the major pillars I would focus on. And then like, what are you wanting to get out of it? Are you wanting to like gain a larger network for professional gain? Are you wanting to learn more? Are you wanting to pivot, So just kind of examining what your why is. And I think for me, it was like, why not now? Great network, great school. I think it will help me progress in my career, having that name recognition. And why not have a master's? Like, as you should, was sort of my mindset. So just saying, think about all that. Think about how you'll balance everything. And And then also just really be in touch with yourself. Like, there's going to be things that are going to challenge you, of course, like the time management, the assignments, like the adjustment of life as you think you know it as an adult to now, oh, wait, now I'm back in school. But honestly, I would say like the major things that got on my nerves were just like, another discussion post. You know what I mean? Another participation post. Like, y'all saw I was in class and I was the most active one in there. I don't know why I have to write a participation post. Like, that stuff, you have to sort of humble yourself to be able to say, like, okay, this is just a part of their grading system. I do think the discussion posts, like, I could see the value in, okay, do you actually understand the things you're reading? And personally, the way that I did it, which I would suggest, is like understanding and reading through the materials as best as possible before class. Like, class should just be to go through what we've all read on our own. So that is kind of where people start to argue, like, you're really teaching yourself. Okay, well, at least you have somebody directing you of where to go, what to learn, access to those resources, people to discuss it with, and then also correction, which we all need from those who are the professors and the professionals. So I think just making sure you have a mindset that's like open to change. I don't love change, but I was like, okay, for this year, you can do anything. Like, for this year, you can lock in. You're going to be excellent at this. And it was just a matter of like, okay, stay on top of your schedule. You know your routine. You know what days you read. You know when you write your post. You know you do your homework. You know on Friday, you need that whole afternoon blocked off to make this 20-slide Canva deck. Get the numbers of your classmates. Be like, this homework assignment does not make sense. Me and ChatGPT became friends not because I was using it for school, which I don't know why the kids can't write sentences now because of it. But sometimes I would literally be like, okay, break down an outline of step by step of what I need to do based on this homework assignment. Because obviously they've written it, but it's like simplify it so that when I go back through my work, I make sure there was no stone left unturned. And so that's kind of how I got into the ChatGPT business, because I can literally remember writing an early days discussion post about how I was like, I don't know about AI. Still not sure about it. Too much, too tough. But now we use it. We use it to balance our ideas and to organize our thoughts. So, and obviously LOL Notion is AI in its own way. So Notion was a huge thing for me. I don't even want to say ChatGPT. Kind of towards the end, I would be like, okay, these instructions don't make sense. And you kind of learn like which teachers write their instructions in a little more like astrological way than necessary, I suppose. But having those connections with my classmates helped. Just understanding, like, do you know what's going on around here? What are you wanting to do with it? And also, you're going to meet so many new people that have different walks of life. Like, because my program was primarily online, there were people in Oregon, there were people in Florida. Like, it was really cool just to hear the different walks of life, hear their work experience. It's kind of like opening up, not just from a networking perspective of like, what can people do for me, but just also to learn how people have applied their undergraduate education, right? And what they're looking to do. It could give you some ideas and some inspiration. So if you're feeling stuck or looking to pivot, not only is it great to make those connections, but also to get inspiration. I would 10 out of 10 recommend that. And then let me see what else I have for y'all. Basically, I feel like it's opened up doors for me in the sense that, like, I have no tangible proof of this, but, well, I feel like now going into my new role, people are like, fight on, fight on, fight on. Like, USC is just so much bigger out here. So, like, if you live in New York, I don't know, maybe go to NYU. I'm not sure, whatever that is for you. But definitely I would not do it just to do it from a place that's maybe not like as, I think the notoriety and the prestige and the respect of the university really made a difference for me. And also obviously the education, but I think those are like two in the same in this component, or two, they're equally important, honestly, because I think it has probably helped me having it on my resume and being in Los Angeles, and then also making those connections with people now, because so many people, like, the network is so extensive, especially in California. So being in California, meeting people and being like, oh, I just finished out my master's at USC. That's usually pretty exciting, and also gives me like a whole new network of people, a whole new thing to talk about. So I'd probably say that's what's made the biggest difference. And also just knowing that I can do that I can get a master's degree in 1 year, summa cum laude. So I would say, all in all, if you're thinking about it, consider why, consider what it would look like for you to do it now versus later, weigh those pros and cons, and also just be open and flexible to changing up your routine as you know it, your schedule as you know it. You're going to be doing homework again. You're going to be reading. You're going to be writing. But it also is keeping you sharp and it's keeping you fresh. And we're also in a literacy epidemic, whereas in people don't have it. So it could never hurt to know more. Low key, that's a whole philosophical discussion about the more you know, the worse life seems. However, I just think, what is the quote? A mind is a terrible thing to waste. So if not now, then when? And if you're thinking about it, always feel free to write into the show, DM us on Instagram. I'd love to hear your story, maybe what's holding you guys back if I didn't get to address it. And just remember that bidding on you is truly believing, even if it's late night study sessions, papers, projects, Canva decks, classes, discussion posts, whatever, that just in the moment feels like, oh, if I have to write one more discussion post, my phalanges are going to leave my body. No, bidding on you is believing that the juice is worth the squeeze. And so sometimes that squeezing is you. But I would say fight on. I would say I found it to be quite worth it. And I think just having more knowledge in my field, having more credibility because of it, hopefully, and just continuing to always be a lifelong learner and student is a huge thing for me. So thank you guys for watching. I hope that you decide to go back to school or not. Know thyself, and to thine own self be true. And until I see you again, I can't wait to bid on you. Roll Tide and fight on.